discuss the last chapter of the prelim topic, the Global Interstate System. So without further ado, let's get started.
Go, continue.
The Global Interstate System. So what is Global Interstate System? It is the system of human interactions, the modern world system. It is structured politically as an interstate system, a system of competing and allying states. And Global Interstate System is also called the international system, and it is the focal point of the field and international relations. So, the Global Interstate System explains the effort of different countries or governments all over the world to have cooperation and collaboration. Example is that International Monetary Fund and as well as the World Bank or WB. So from the role itself, interstate, when we say interstate, it is the relation of each state. When we say inter, it has something to do with the relationship with each other. And global, it is the relationship of countries globally around the world. That's a state. So as defined as Weber, a state is a compulsory political organization with a centralized government that maintains the legitimate source of force within a certain territory. So from this definition, we come up the elements of the states. There are 4 elements. The first is government, second is sovereignty, third is territory, and the fourth is population. So what is government? Government is a group of people which performs most important functions, has a legislative and executive power in a certain territory. Sovereignty is a legitimate source of force. Power is a legal, you can impose rules. So, this elements is sovereignty is wala mag-question ng mga ibang country and you will not depend on the other countries or their implementation. The third element is the territory. Territory is very important because when you don't have a territory, you cannot call us a state. And we are always linked as the territory. Fourth is the population. Nation. So what is nation? Nation is the concept and emphasizes the organic ties that hold groups of people together and inspire a sense of loyalty and belonging. The ethnicity, language, religion, and others. So, even beliefs, when people share the same beliefs, you can already call that a nation. A nation is a move on the relationship of people in that particular group. I am going to differentiate what is the state and the nation. So, a state, it is a legal entity. And the nation is a social-cultural entity. The state is linked to a territory, and the nation is linked to a group of people may exist even without sovereignty. The state is established consciously and can be created unconsciously. It's the nation. So, for instance, there are nations that does not have a state. We call them stateless nation. Nation state. Nation state is a political community that emanates from civil society to legitimately execute to peace. So there are some examples of a nation state or stateless nation. The first example is the Kurds. Kurds is the largest ethnic stateless nation. They lack of territory and they live outside the borders such as Iran, Iraq, Armenia, and Syria. The courts, they only began to consider the creation of their homeland, which they referred as eldest land Earth in 20th century.
Let's proceed to struggle of nation states. As we have already established, globalization refers to the increasing pace of scope of interconnection crisscrossing the globe. Anthropologist Diether Abergas in 1996-19 argued that the nation states as a complex modern political form is on its last legs. He discussed this in terms of 5 specific scapes or flows: ethnoscapes, technoscapes, ageoscapes, financescapes, and mediascapes. And let's proceed to Kenichi Omi, 1995. Claimed that economic interdependence and global communication had rendered the nation-state a nostalgic fiction. What do you mean by nostalgic fiction? These novels are taking place between 1980 and 2001 and were written by authors looking back. That is the nostalgic means. Let's proceed to Hans Kata. His states now hold themselves accountable to a host of international norms and standards, often with the express purpose of gaining legitimacy at home and respectability abroad. And according to James Rossano, 2003, his states are struggling while trying to keep advances towards supranational integration and meet with forces of local fragmentation.
Struggles of nation states. According to James Rossano, 2003, states are struggling while trying to keep advances towards supranational integration and meet with forces of local fragmentation. So, example of that, when these two forces meet, of course, it would cause a problem of friction on nation states. And since in globalization, we would want to keep the relationship of the country with other countries as smooth as possible when it becomes of economy and politics in abroad. So next. However, according to Hans Schatter, states now hold themselves accountable to a host of international norms and standards, often with the express purpose of gaining legitimacy at home and respectability abroad. So, example of this, if you are also sacrificing your legitimacy at home, meaning nationality can be fragmented as to gaining recognition in the global arena. So, Philippines wins our arbitration case against China. The United Nations backed permanent court of arbitration rule that China had no historic title over the South China Sea, and that is violated the sovereign rights of the Philippines with its actions in strategic waterways. So, this is a fine example of the struggles of nation states. Is that the dispute over China is claimed by. So, example of that China, that we are the victims in dispute, World Head and United Nations decision. So we are very familiar with that. That we know since 2016 that the United Nations voted in favor of the Philippines in the arbitral ruling case over South China Sea. However, China still refused and did not accept the decision given by the United Nations. So, globalism and nationalism. So, in short, if you will summarize the challenges identified by the various experts and scholars that are faced by our nation states, there is an imbalance in applying globalism and nationalism. Because of globalization, because in our globalism, and nationalism. So in short, if we will summarize the challenges identified by the various experts and scholars that are faced by our nation states today, is that there is an imbalancing in applying globalism and nationalism in our nation states.
Good day, ma'am. I'm here to tackle the effects of globalization in nation states. Number one, the nation state under the globalization brace is compelled to organize the domestic agendas to fit the economic and social and political global scope. The issues is that local matters that could be given more attention to uplift the standard of living within the nation state become secondary matter. The nation state becomes more of passive recipients of the already baked bread and are left with the only sole duty of consuming the bread rather than contributing towards mixing of the dough. Also, the form of free market fundamentalism endures the nation-state style of governing since, in some instances, they have to opt for privatization so as to fit well in the global village as the expenses of the masses. On the other hand, the horizontal effect of globalizations are number two, under globalization, the nation-state sovereignty towards economic and political integrations remain in limbo as power steadily shift to the most powerful financial and corporate institutions of the sovereignty. Government in developing would merge to obtain with decolonization are now rapidly eroding. But in spite of the negative effect, the nation state that has established also imposed the strong political attempt to one another, educational, cultural, economic, and technical intergovernmental relationship to uphold the
Topic this is all about establishment of international law and principles under the effects of globalization states. Example of the establishment of international laws, the United Nations. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, called the UDHR, is a declaration adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on 10 December 1948 and applies the Child Paris. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is an international document adopted by the United Nations General Assembly that enshrines the rights of freedoms of all human beings. Example of that is to maintain international law, peace, and security, to provide fundamental freedom and human rights, and to refrain from the threat of use of force by a state against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. So next. The rise of transnational activism. 8. The rise of transnational activism. Transnational activism can be defined as the mobilization of collective claims by actors located in more than a country and addressing more than one nation government and or international government organization or another international actors. And the actors of transnational activism is had to come to be considered political, social, cultural, and economic agents or groups that have transocietal relations across borders. They purpose their goals somewhat independent of governmental consideration. And the examples of transnational actors is some transnational actors operate globally. For example, the Catholic Church, the International Committee of the Red Cross, the ICRC. That's all.
Topic today is the creation of new communication network. Through globalization, it is possible to interact and learn more about the other countries. Their struggle in social, economics, and political issues. Since new communication network was erected, internet and technology service as the best tool in order to communicate and do things easily through the use of media. Best example is what happened in Arab Spring, that happened in the spring of 2011 that led the call to its name. It is a Muslim countries that affirms democracy through communication of the different leaders in different countries, namely Tunisia, Morocco, Syria, Libya, Egypt, Bahrain. They acknowledge properly and order the goal, which is to uprise democracy through paper communication. That's all. Thank you.
So my topic is all about intergovernmental organization or IGOs. IGOs means we aim to foster strong economic, political, cultural, educational, and technical intergovernmental relationships. We call it intergovernmental organization or IGOs, and main establishing of this organization is aimed to foster strong economic, political, cultural, educational, and technical intergovernmental relationships. IGOs are very important to nation states because they create a mechanism for the world inhabitants to work more successfully together the areas of peace and security, and they also deal with economic and social questions. Examples of IGOs are United Nations or UN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN, European Union or EO, World Trade Organization or WTO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization or NATO, International Criminal Court or ICC, and Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries or OPEC. So there's a lot instead of studying here. And now, what does these IGOs do to the member countries? Now, what does these IGOs do to the member countries? Let's take an instance of ASEAN. So how does ASEAN, which enhances economic, political, cultural, educational, and technical relationship among its members? And more importantly, is today always intervene on these member countries? Well, the members of ASEAN countries are Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Singapore, Indonesia, Laos, Vietnam, Malaysia, Philippines, and Brunei Darussalam. And well, they are intergovernmental organization, which means they have or they can intervene in the political, economic, educational, and cultural aspect or technical aspect. of these countries, they very much respect the sovereignty of member countries while keeping the close relationship in economic, social, and cultural aspects of their nation.
So, before I proceed to my topic, so what is internationalism and globalism? So, okay, internationalism, it is anchored on the opinion that nationalism should be outrun because links that bind people of different countries are more powerful than those that disconnect them anora. So, internationalism, it is the political principle that advocates greater political or economic cooperation among states and nations. It is associated with other political movements and ideologies but can also affect doctrine, belief, or system or movement itself. Sa pagminguntag internationalism, from the word internationalism, it is the character or the principle, interest, or outlook in the policy of cooperation among nations, and it is an attitude or belief favorite such policy. Like for example of internationalism, when company produce goods for a wide range and of customers in different countries, the product that are internationalized often must be localized to fit the need of a given country. So let's proceed to globalism. Globalism, this is the concept emerged as an attitude that seeks to understand all of interconnections of the modern world and to highlight patterns that underlie them. So globalism is much more wider terms of its meaning, scope, and outcome. It involves movement of ideas and information, images, and of people who of course carry ideas and information with them. So like for example of globalism, the European Union, the United Nations, the World Bank, the World Trade Organization or WTO, and International Monetary Fund. Although the two terms may appear to be similar, yet there exists conceptual difference between the two. Globalism is much more wider terms of its meaning, scope, and outcome, while the internationalism lays stress on the solidarity and cooperation among the nations while acknowledging their sovereign character. So, the similarities of internationalism and globalism is, like for example, McDonald's operates over 30,000 in 100 countries. Its worldwide expansion is an example of globalization. Internationalization is, by design, the corporation creates a menu adaptable to various local tastes and customs. This policy is an example of internationalism. So, that's it.
Let's talk about World Trade Organization. World Trade Organization is an intergovernmental organization that regulates and facilitates international trade, and governments use the organizations to establish, revise, and enforce the rules that govern international trade. So, World Trade Organization is an act as negotiator to the conflicts of countries, and it helps to use trade as a means to raise living standards, creates jobs, and improve people's lives. It operates global system of trade and helps developing countries build their trade capacity. So, under World Trade Organization has 164 member states. Under World Trade Organization, the USA, China, and Germany are the countries that benefit the most worldwide from their accession to World Trade Organization. 159 countries are currently members of the WTO or World Trade Organization, but now it has 164 members. The UN member states, the European Union, Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. So WTO is our World Trade Organization is the only global international organization dealing with the rules of trade between nations. To sum up, 164 members made of the World Trade Organization seeks to lower trade barriers by negotiating and signing agreements between the member nations. So, in ANORA 2014 states that internationalism is basically anchored in the opinion that nationalism should be outrun because links that bind people of different countries are more powerful than those that disconnect them. So, word internationalism, it lays to stress only in the solidarity and cooperation among the nations in World Trade Organization. So, globalism is not only emphasizes the delusion of the sovereign expression of the nations, but demonstrate the conflicts arising out of this delusion as well. To sum up in internationalism is an attitude or belief favoring such as policy. And so globalism is a national policy of treating the whole world as a proper sphere for political influence. And that's all. Thank you for listening.
My topic is all about Immanuel Kant in 1975, a German philosopher whose comprehensive and systematic work in epistemology, the theory of knowledge. And he conceptualized the idea of liberal internationalism, which proposes the nations must give up their freedom and submit to a larger system. Next is Giuseppe Mazzini in 1805 and 1872. Mazzini believed that nationalism meant the liberation of people from foreign rule, and also he believed that cooperation among nation states is essential.
Good morning, everyone. My topic today is about Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson in 1856 to 1924 was an American politician and academic who served as the 28th President of the United States from 1913 to 1921. He presided over ratification of the 19th Amendment giving women the right to vote, and laws that prohibited child labor and that mandated an 8-hour workday for railroad workers. Woodrow Wilson led his country into World War, and I became the creator and leading advocate of the League of Nations. Woodrow Wilson, he adopted the principles of self-determination, democratic government, collective security, and international law and League of Nations.
Look me in the